86 is one of the best new anime of 2021. It has a very interesting story that could be saying something about modern Japan and its treatment of non-Japanese. However, it is hidden in many layers of subtext and requires some knowledge of why it is hidden in the first place to unpack. So why is it hidden? In 1965, Miyazaki and his animating partner Isao Takahata were making their first movie together. The movie was directed by Takahata and as such it took a long time to complete and had a lot of social commentary. Takahata's focus on this movie was the native Japanese people, the Ainu, and modern Japan. Toei however blocked that idea and the movie was set in Scandinavia, a region far removed from Japan. As a consequence, the movie, despite being a success critically, was vague with its message of fight your oppressors. Media that is critical of Japan is almost inexistent and heavily criticized for being anti-Japanese. Shoplifters in 2018 won the Palme d'Or, one of the most prestigious awards in film. However, the director's relationship with Japan is complicated. He declined a meeting with the Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology. His explanation was simple. Reflecting on the past where the film industry became united with national interest and national policy, I tend to think that keeping a clear distance from government authority is the right thing to do. The media and the state shouldn't mingle. It creates a conflict of interest, those who are supposed to be critical of the government fraternizing with the government. In Japan they actually do. Journalists who are a part of a reporters club or kisha, visit the house of a high-ranking politician of the club that they are associated with. Each major department has its own club. To be invited to a club you have to be a member of a major newspaper or a major news network. The outsiders are of course ignored, and are not given any information. Free speech exists as a concept in Japan, but at the same time it is discouraged to question the government. Reporters clubs and Santoku are examples of this. The Reporters Club gives control to the government over information, Santoku is more intangible. Santoku is the feeling of pleasing your seniors to the point of self-censorship. It's a feeling so prevalent that it deserves its own name, and so uniquely Japanese that it has no English equivalent. Free press in Japan is slowly becoming authoritarian to an alarming degree. They are ranked 67 in the ranking of free speech, the worst of any developed nation. There are two ideas I have presented. The first is the powerful upper management of studios or television networks that defang any biting commentary. The Great Adventure of Horace is an example of this. Another example is the documentary, Wartime Sexual Violence in Question. NHK, Japan's leading network, ordered a documentary on the subject following the Women's International War Crimes Tribunal. When presented with the preview, the upper management got to work and removed content that mentioned the Japanese military's involvement and the verdict of the tribunal that put responsibility on the Japanese government and the emperor. The second idea is that Japanese television is a controlled entity where criticism of the government is minimized by control of information. When these two things mix they create media that is largely positive or very euphemistic when critical of the government. If 86 is a criticism of Japanese treatment towards non-Japanese, 86 has to be euphemistic and vague, hence why many don't see it as such. 86 could have easily been speculative fiction exploring the Japanese treatment of the non-Japanese in Japan, and if it is, it's necessary to hide the criticism and, like the Great Adventure of Horace, set the story somewhere far from Japan. But it is probably not so. The author wrote the light novel as the exploration of the ethics of using drones in war, but at doing so she inadvertently drew parallels to Imperial Japan. The description of the discrimination that the 86 face is reminiscent of the discrimination that the natives of Japan faced. A line in the plot description goes, the 86 originally had equal rights, but were persecuted and scapegoated by the dominant Alba race and the Alba supremacist republic government to the point where Colorado were both officially designated and popularly considered subhuman. The natives' land was annexed by the Wajins, the Japanese, and they were given nationality. However, they were called primitive and dirty and their lands were taken away from them. They were forced to assimilate, and discrimination forced them to hide their ethnicity, language and culture. This allowed the Japanese government to call and present itself as of one ethnicity when in fact it isn't. This justifies the few anti-discrimination laws. There is no discrimination when we are of one ethnicity, therefore there is no law preventing discrimination. Where 86 is interesting is the idea of forcing the other in war zones. There is a growing amount of non-Japanese in Japan. Few laws protect them from discrimination. And the native Japanese still exist in small numbers. If a country that believes itself to be of one ethnicity or adopts a monolithic image of itself like Japan, then there is nothing protecting the other. If this is the message of 86, then it is well hidden from the intervening upper management and the insidiously suppressive media. But I doubt it is the case. But damn it, I wish it was. Before I leave, I have to say the Act on the Promotion of Ainu Culture and Dissemination and Enlightenment of Knowledge about Ainu Tradition was passed in 1988. This made the act to protect Aborigines in Hokkaido, which did the opposite of protecting, ineffective. And in 2019 the government recognized the Ainu as the natives of Japan. There is progress. The free press stuff is another story though. And this video was not sponsored by South Korea.